following program is brought to you in living color on NBC.
Good morning, I am James Marden and welcome to CBS. The headline of this morning is the tragic and early death of the well-known activist for civil rights movements, Martin Luther King. The disaster took place in the Memphis where King moved to support local black garbage collectors on strike to get better pay and treatment. Today, with our guest activist Ella Baker and the feminist Betty Friedan, we are going to talk about Martin Luther King's life and the progress he has achieved around the black rights. Martin Luther King was born in 1929. He claimed the civil and political equality for black people through the right to vote for all, an end to segregation, better education, but also economic and social justice by leading the civil rights movement. On 28 August 1963, the March on Washington and the famous I Have a Dream speech, as well as other movements for different rights, were successfully recognized, as evidenced by the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. These acts have allowed emancipation and development of black persons, but also for other minorities like gay people, disabled people, women. Martin Luther King was one of the most committed for the cause of black people, but there are so many activists and movements in this revolutionary period we are living in. Let's welcome Betty Friedan. You are committed to the women's cause and also the black cause. There are also different movements like Malcolm X, who leads the Black Panthers movement, a movement rather based on violence, or association like NAACP. It's the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, and to which you belong, Ella Baker. Your actions and causes show that you are very committed and determined. However, they don't defend the same idea, only the desire to acquire more rights. So, how would you describe the link between your actions and what similarities can you identify?
I feel like the fight for women's emancipation is truly close to the black community's fight. A new movement is born, black feminism, of which Ella Baker is one of the leaders, and it shows that the women's cause touches everybody of every ethnicity. It is all about human rights. It is a problem anchored in our society that we must change, and we must topple the patriarchal society. We have made nearly the same journey and met the same obstacles.
Okay, then you are invested in the new movement of black feminism. Today, to make your voice heard, you have written books. Please tell us more about your artworks.
According to me, The Feminine Mystique that I wrote in 1963 is the launch of a new battle to rebalance the place of women in American society. In this novel, I criticized the image of women conveyed in the media. I wanted to demonstrate that this mainstream idea of women in our societies wastes the true potential of women. I wrote a second book the same year, The Problem That Has No Name, to denounce the unhappiness of women who had only one choice in their life, being the perfect housewife. They have to be cheerful and grateful to be a feminine wife or mother. There is no other glorious destiny than this one. In reality, the modern woman is discontent with her life, as she can pursue a career and be independent.
So you use your books to convey messages and to spread ideas, but especially to claim rights. Do you think this book have a real impact?
I have to admit that the 1960s are a period of great advancement for the women's cause, and I like to think that the books I wrote had an impact on it. They fit in the second wave of feminism all over the world. The same year they came out, President J.F. Kennedy announced a report on gender equality from the Commission on the Status of Women, which reveals discrimination against women. In 1964, the law in favor of equal pay was voted on, and in 1965, U.S. Supreme Court struck down one of Comstock's last contraceptives ban laws, so that the Constitution of the United States protects the liberty of married couple to buy and use contraceptives without government restriction.
The success of your books has given you confidence and a desire to become more involved in the women's cause. Is this what brings you here today?
After the great success of my books, and when I saw that women started to make their voice heard, I thought it was my duty to reinforce the fight for women's emancipation, in echoes with all the groups of activist women that were created after the laws of 1964 and 1965. Therefore, I have founded the National Organization of Women, which was inspired by the NAACP. We carry out peaceful actions to defend our rights in a political and juridical scale. I advocate a moderate feminism, aiming to greater gender equality and new rights for women, without positioning myself in opposition to men. Fortunately, it led to major advancement in the US, and the women's cause has known victories. For example, in 1967, the concept of positive discrimination has been extended to women. We are officially recognized as victims of discrimination. Marital rape is declared illegal, and we aim at authorizing divorce by mutual consent. There is a change of mentality in the American society.
Would you say that the actions of your movement tend to resemble the non-violence of Martin Luther King or the violence of the Black Panthers?
Of course, a cause must be provocative to mark everybody's mind. Particularly in 1968, we have carried out some provocative and radical actions, such as the funeral of traditional femininity at Arlington National Cemetery, the crowning of a Miss America ship, and a Trash of Freedom, an operation which collects objects and symbols of this so-called femininity in America, such as bras or false lashes. But it created discrepancy inside the feminist movement. We have, on the right hand, radical feminists who consider that the specific oppression of women for the benefit of men results before any other cause from patriarchy. Radical feminists set themselves the goals of abolishing this social order. On the other hand, we have liberal feminism, which claims only legal equality between men and women, and social feminism, who thinks that this oppression is due to class society and will disappear with it. But we must stay united to achieve our goal.
The tragic death of Martin Luther King must be a turning point for your plans for the future. Are you going to decrease your climb out of fear, or on the contrary, will it prompt you to protest more?
I don't have a precise plan, but I will continue to fight for women emancipation. And I can see that some things are starting to emerge. For example, I want to broaden education for women, because I think that if we want to topple patriarchal society, we must change behavior and minds, and it starts right from school. So women should have the same access as men at school. And the other thing that I want to do is to pass on as soon as possible the law concerning abortion, because women should have the right should have a control over their body as much as they wish. So it's truly important to continue the fight for women's empowerment. Finally, I'll do everything I can to facilitate the adoptions of law in favor of gender equality.
Thank you, Betty Friedan, for showing us the existence and the importance of a movement that advocates rights and equal rights for women. We are now going to talk about an association for the rights of people of color, which is the NAACP. Martin Luther King was an important figure of the association. We are lucky today to be with Ella Baker, who is a member of the association. So how did your commitment to the racial cause start?
I think that my commitment began in my childhood. In fact, my mother and my grandmother, with whom I grew up, share with me all the values that I try to defend today. And I would also say that my bravery to make people understand the solemnity of the racial situation in the USA and even in the world started there. Indeed, my grandmother shared with me and my siblings a lot of her history as a slave, and it's in this testimony that I found the strength to be involved in this movement. Actually, we can see very soon that I was an obstinate child. I remember when I was furious against all these unfair and segregational rules at school. But my real commitment starts when I arrived in New York City and start to meet more people, included a lot of activists. And thanks to that, I start to develop my political truth. And I think that all the diversity in this city plays a part in my life and in my fights.
So during this period, you were in different associations and groups, but it's in 1938 that you have committed to the NAACP. What was your role in this association?
I joined the NAACP in 1938. They trust me very soon because in 1914 I became a secretary of this organization who fought for the defense of the Afro-American civil rights. And thanks to my commitment, I traveled a lot and tried to recruit people and raise funds. I think it was an amazing experience because I met new people and I was directly in contact with a lot of activists that share their ideas. And I think that we need the strength of all the activists and their union to be more powerful. We don't necessarily need a leader, but firstly people involved in this movement. And I'm so grateful to have met all these people because they are the main cause of our efficiency. Indeed, all the local activists are major in the movement because they legitimate our cause. So when in 1943 my place in this association was more significant, I was really convinced that we need to follow this idea of a less hierarchical organization. Plus, women need to be more involved in this organization, and we need to put the emphasis on people rather than on leaders. For me, the NAACP is an organization to help people, and especially young people, find their voice. Even if at times I wasn't very present in this association, I think that I will always be linked to the NAACP.
Your involvement and role has allowed you to meet influential people like Martin Luther King through your struggles, and you even had the chance to work with him. So, could you tell us more?
Yes, even if we had some differences in the way of leading, Martin and I collaborate a lot. Firstly, I work with him in the NAACP, it's where we met. Then we worked together for the creation of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference in 1957. This conference Gatorade pestered to talk about Pacific action for the civil rights movement, but Martin and I didn't really share the same perspective for this organization. Indeed, as a woman, I feel very excluded for the SCLC, and the gap that Martin Luther King creates between the people and the field was one of the negative aspects of the organization. Martin Luther King was very supportive of me when I found the Students' Nonviolence Coordination Committee. For me, it was a big deal because we need more young people in the movement, and we need them because they are directly concerned by inequality, so they need to raise their voice too.
So you had the chance to work with this great man, but now after yesterday's tragic accident, will the movement continue or even increase, or will they stop? What do you think you will do after the death of Martin Luther King?
I think that people need to be even more concerned about civil rights. We need to continue to fight and to be stronger than ever, so that all the action that Martin Luther King do still have an impact on our future. I believe that Martin's death will not be a stop to our general effort. We don't necessarily need a leader to pursue our action. We only need the will to make the world better. Martin Luther King lit the spark that I'm sure will lead to a greater future.
Well, thank you Ella Baker for sharing your experience of advocacy and your encounter with our hero who we cried today. We can also thank Betty Friedan for being here. See you soon and hope that the struggle for rights will continue and through Europe.